Welcome to the agenda meeting of the Borough of Morton for February 5th, 2020. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Preston, will you take roll call, please?
Yes. Michelle Miller.
Yes.
John Miller.
Yes.
Michelle Roberts.
Present.
Robert McGrath.
Here.
Kylie Hodnett.
Present.
Joseph Boylan.
Here.
Douglas Eager.
Here.
Mayor Act.
Present.
Also present, Solicitor Ewald, Sergeant Rodstein, and Junior Councilman Josh Fiorentino.
Alrighty, thank you. Are there any public comments on agenda items? Seeing none, we'll go on. Does anyone on council have anything they'd like to say, starting down at Mayor App?
Thank you, Madam President, but not at this time.
Mr. Miller?
None at this time.
Mr. Eager?
None at this time.
None
at this time, thank you.
Mrs. Roberts?
No, nothing at the present.
Mrs. Hodnett?
No, nothing else.
I'd just like to say that there was historic things that happened the last couple of weeks, concluding today in Congress. Terrible thing for our country. However you feel about the decision is your feeling. Very difficult time, and hopefully we will work through this to have more clarity with how this country should be running and get us all working together. Beyond that, on the agenda topics, we start out with public buildings and infrastructure. Today we got bids, finally got bids for the improvements on the community development grant, which is for the outside the building here, the woods, the top lot, and the ballpark on Alpha. The bids came in, 3 different bids came in out of 6 people that were interested. One came in substantially underbid, and so Mr. Catania is going to check with this party to make sure that they have all the right equipment and they completely understand the grant, because it came like $30,000 under what the next bid was. And so next week we'll have more information on that. But it's really good news, because the second bid was only $3,000 over the grant amount, and that $3,000 we can work with and probably get more money from the county if we decided to go with that bidder. So we'll have more details on that next week. Other than that, I really have nothing else on public buildings and infrastructure, unless the police department knows anything about their any bids they've gotten in or anything on their building improvements.
I believe Mr. Catania said it was done briefly by a certain group that does reviewing.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. And the other good thing for public buildings and infrastructure is our maintenance people haven't been out having to remove snow and salt and things, so they've been able to get some other things done. And hopefully we'll keep that up. However, I don't know what that says for climate change, but it's a good thing as far as money goes and time spent. So on to finance and administration. Mr. Boylan?
Nothing for
You have
tonight.
anything?
No.
Mr. Miller with public safety.
Good evening. The only thing I see on my agenda is the civil service member appointment.
Yeah, so at this point, you are looking to appoint members to the Civil Service Commission because the terms of the old members have all expired. It's been so long since you had any action.
That's
Great.
Is it great? Okay, no, it's great. Mr. Lillicrap says it's great.
Well, when you're
We're gonna
deaf,
go
it's
with it.
different again.
Thank you, Charles.
Sorry about that.
There's a little feedback. There's two things that are coming up very quickly for the Civil Service Commission. The first thing is that they have to consider, review, and propose any revisions to the civil service rules before you start the hiring process. The hope would be that you would have the civil service members meet in the next 2 weeks to start that process after they're appointed. The second thing that they're going to do is then start the process to hire a new full-time police officer. Because it's been so long, you have no one on the Civil Service Commission whose term is still current. The police department and the staff have gone through the records, and they're recommending a few people to fill those roles. The first one would be Tom O'Donnell. Tom has served on the commission for more years than any of us can remember. He actually participated when the chief was interviewed and when the sergeant, right?
Correct.
So he's been doing it for a little while. The second person is Carlton Bagby. Carlton was on the Service Commission last time around. You know, everyone I think is familiar with him, and he's been attending some classes on how to conduct these things, and he's interested in continuing his service. The third person is a new person to the commission, but an old person to us. It's Mario. Mario Semino has expressed his interest and availability to serve on the commission. And so at this point, unless there's any other people that the council wants to consider, we'd be looking for a motion one at a time to appoint those people to the commission. The tricky part is it's supposed to be a staggered service, and since we're appointing them all at one time, you would appoint one to the remaining 2 years of the 6-year term, one to the remaining 4 years of a 6-year term, and one to a full 6-year term. So those spots would expire in 2022, 2024, and 2026. So, and I don't think it really matters which one goes in which. You just have to designate one for each. So at this point, are there any council members who are looking to add any other names to the consideration list? Okay, so at this point, I'd be looking for someone on council to say, I move that we appoint X person to the term which would expire 2022.
One quick question.
Yes?
Do you think the candidates themselves would care about their terms?
None of them expressed any preference, and really, the likelihood is that they'll do this once, and then in the next 6 years, we're probably hopefully not going to hire another full-timer. That would mean we lose a full-timer, so.
Well, my only comment about that is that I understand from the office that Mr. O'Donnell had expressed interest at some point in time of stepping down. Is that true? Well, I don't know where else I would have heard it, but no. And I want to say about Mario being on there, since he had been on council, he had worked a great deal with the FOP contracts and all too, that he's the person to be on here with his knowledge and his experience.
And
So,
before they vote, I have one question to ask.
yes.
Also, I believe Mr. Walter Stubbs is also in the Civil Service Commission.
He has served in the past, and yes, he has.
Well, I would make a motion to reappoint Mr. O'Donnell, and I do not know him. And so I don't care which amount of time, if you want to do him for the 22, and if I hope you wouldn't be offended that I said that, but to put him on the short list. just because I'm not familiar with him, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe we should put him on the long list. Does anybody have any comments on that?
Well, it just occurs to me that we would just be going through this process again 2 years from now to reappoint.
That was gonna be my,
Right.
it really makes no difference. It's just setting them up for whenever their reappointment would be. I mean, that's literally all it is. Like you
That's what
said,
it seems
someone
like.
would be revisited in 2 years, someone in 4, and someone in 6.
Right.
And if
Still
you're
have
happy
that
with their service, you can
opportunity.
reappoint them. There's no term limits.
Yes.
Yeah, so I missed something about that. I was, are there members here that are already on here?
O'Donnell and Bagby.
So I
Or
would suggest.
they had been on. Currently, it's been so long, we don't have, we have to treat it as all terms are expired at this point.
So we can make them the long ones.
I was
I mean,
gonna make them the
whatever-
shorter ones if they've already been on. but-
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. Was a shorter one.
We can flip a coin, too.
No, I agree with
Troll
you in
ones.
terms of your initial Tom
But
O'Donnell
making the
with
short-
2,
shorter?
and then
Okay, so the motion is to appoint Tom O'Donnell to the Civil Service member appointment, which would end in 2022.
Second.
And what kind of vote do we need on this?
You can do it by voice vote as long as it's clear.
Okay, so we'll take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries that Mr. O'Donnell is appointed for the term ending in 2022. And then we make a motion for the second person, which would be, I guess, Carlton Bagby, for his appointment to end in 2024. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, that motion carries. And then for the appointment of Mario Semino for the 6-year term, ending in 2026. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Any opposed? Oh, okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well, we've got ourselves a Civil Service Commission.
Maybe we should have done it by age.
It's already done.
Well, kind of did backwards, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'll contact those people and I'll work to get them to establish a meeting in the next couple of weeks so they can start the process of making recommendations for revisions to the civil service rules. Thank you to council for getting this together.
Thank you. Next up is Community and Economic Development. Tanya, do you have anything?
No, I would like to have a Community and Economic Development Committee meeting.
Yes.
Along with my co-council members who will be on the committee with me. And I'd like to have that the last Wednesday, the 26th. Is there something?
February 26th?
February 26th at 7?
Mhm.
I can do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that
And
anybody else is on the
you
committee?
do want Bob there, and
Definitely
Shelley,
Bob.
are you still on that committee? Do you want to be on that committee?
Yes.
Okay, so there's your 2 council members,
Yeah.
and then anybody else you want on there. I will be sending out a list to the council of who's on your committee. We haven't quite gotten all that done.
Tuesday. That's at 7, right?
Yes.
7 o'clock on the 26th, whatever day of the week that is,
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
which is a Wednesday, okay? You meet here at 7 o'clock. Highway, I hope that before that you can talk with Shelley or Bob, or both, to get a little bit of background. There's all sorts of things community and economic development can do and be involved with. And there's a couple of things that I'll talk to you about myself too, okay? So thank you for that. That's a good thing. This is something we need we move forward with our committees. Mrs. Roberts, Public Health and Sanitation.
Good evening. As we see, there's nothing on the agenda this evening, but there will be things that have to go forward for as I will be convening with the committee and reaching out to them for a scheduled meeting. And also I did speak with the supplier for the lids, and I did confirm that I can still get the 20 lids. So I will be proposing that with Mr. Poole as that's one of the things that we will be doing as a committee. So we'll be getting 20 lids to start with for the residents that wanted recycling lids for the containers. And then also I will be coordinating with Mr. Poole in regards to preparing for the bidding process for the new contracts.
Very good. And Mrs. Preston, do we know if what's going on with our trash collectors for President's Day?
They will be collecting that day.
They will be collecting, and that means that the
And
the center is open. Okay.
Yes.
So President's Day's on. Make sure to post that,
Yes.
since they're, it's going back and forth a bit on some days. Thank you. You done, Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
And we come to law and ordinance.
Yes, I have a couple items. I've been working with the solicitor, and I'm going to turn it over to him so he can explain what we're doing.
So, I guess a couple months ago, when we were processing just a routine application or a routine request from a resident, we discovered a typographical error in the zoning code. And zoning ordinance amendments are a little bit more complicated than a standard ordinance amendment. They have to go to the planning commission for review. They have to go to the county planning commission for review. They have to be advertised. You have to hold a hearing on them. And since they're a little bit more burdensome, it was raised with the staff that we wanted to make sure if there's anything similar that's small but urgent, that we do it at the same time. So we came up with a list of 7 ordinance amendments. 8 ordinance amendments that we wanted council to consider. And after talking with Doug, we're going to split this into 2 ordinances in order to get the most urgent ones done quickly, and then give the Law and Ordinance Committee a little bit more time to consider the other ones. I'm just going to run through them real quick. The typographical error that we noticed was in the R3 zoning district. It's supposed to set the minimum lot widths, and for some reason when it was drafted, eons ago, it says maximum instead of minimum. So we're just changing that to correct that typographical error. The second one is in the accessory buildings and structures. This is something that was recommended by your fire marshal and your engineer. It's creating a minimum setback between accessory use structures and a principal use building. So if a residence has, a shed or a standalone garage, it's it would require that there's a 10-foot setback between the 2 structures, and that's a fire safety issue. The third item is non-conforming uses and structures. There's a principle under the law that says that if you have multiple lots that are non-conforming and they're all owned by the same person, then you can't sell off one of those lots to make the original lot non-conforming. You have to. It can only be. It has to comply with the dimensional requirements of the ordinance if they're held in common. And this is just to make sure that that's clear in the ordinance with the language. Those are the 3 that we're going to propose first. The next one is also a non-conforming use and structure issue. The engineer pointed out that under the section regarding abandonment of a non-conforming use or structure, he was not confident that the language was clear on how to make a determination if a use is abandoned. So we created a new explanation that's much more clear to make that to clean that up. The next one was also recommended by your engineer. That was that when he was reviewing the ordinance that's currently in place for private swimming pools, that ordinance has become a little bit outdated in that it conflicts with the current Uniform Construction Code and building codes. So he proposed a couple of minor changes, including the definition of how many inches of water or constitutes a swimming pool. And there were a couple other, items on the definition of swimming pools and when they need to require permits, that he's just proposing some changes to make it consistent with the Uniform Construction Code. The next one was also proposed by the engineer. This is the general lot and yard requirements. In the zoning code, there's certain things that you have that are part of the structure of a building which aren't included or which are exempted from the side yard setbacks and the rear yard setbacks. And that's because they're usually really minor things like a gutter or an eave or a chimney. Those things can stick out from the sidewall of a structure and not be found to be in violation of the setback. This has come up in the past with regard to decks, and especially decks that are attached to twins. The way yours is currently written could theoretically make it impossible to have a deck on a twin home. So he recommended a couple of changes to make it clear which what items can project into the side yard. So it's cornices, eaves, gutters, chimneys, and other similar features. And so we have that more clearly defined. And the final item relates to use and occupancy permits. The borough requires that use and occupancy permits be pulled anytime a property is sold in the borough, along with other occasions, like when the use changes from a non-conforming use or when the use or occupancy of the building is altered. So this is just another change where it's designed to improve the language of the ordinance and make it more clear so that when the engineer, the code enforcement officials have to enforce these ordinances, then they will have clear language to provide for residents to understand what the requirements are. So at this point, we're not looking for anything from council today. You all have a copy of the proposed changes in front of you. Take them home, read them. Hopefully they're not too boring. And next week we will be proposing a modified ordinance that only deals with the first three issues, to ask you, if you have any revisions to that you think are necessary. And if not, we're going to ask for you to authorize us to advertise it for approval. Or it's going to have to go to the planning commissions first, and then it would be theoretically approved at your April meeting after that review. Are there any questions?
Just one. This is coming from the office because we deal with this almost monthly now. One thing that we'd like to look at with that last change, which is the one for the use and occupancy.
Right.
Can we also look at the penalties that are imposed? Because we are literally having properties sold and transferred without a use and occupancy, which should never happen. I mean, just the process should stop that, when they go to settlement. But we've had that happen. Like I said, it's at least once a month now. And a lot of these have to do with properties that have either been abandoned or are in foreclosure, and everybody just says, oh, well, we do it so quick, and but, the law says that they have to have it, and that should not transfer without that, So one thing is to look on the other side of it to see what the penalties are currently, and maybe make them a little bit stricter so that we can go after those people, because we really have no way to go after them after the fact.
Okay, yeah. I can look at that over the next week and have an answer to council next week.
You might want to look at the change they made in the state where they have 18 months to do them. You can't force them unless it's an issue of public safety.
Yeah, and that's not That's not being changed in this.
I know, I realize, but
Yeah.
I think there's a mentality going over the hell, I don't have to do it because, you know, there's an issue here that they're going to give me 18 months to do it anyhow. So as the office was saying, you have to have some sort of a hammer to make sure they do it. 18 months from now, you can't tell them you got to do that because we got to know what it is on the day they sell it.
Yeah, and they still have to apply for a use and occupancy permit. The only thing is that if there's something that's not life safety related, then the occupancy permit is granted on a temporary or provisional basis, and with the condition that they bring it into compliance within the 12, I think it's 12 months, not 18, but that they have to do so within the 12 months.
Sure, it's 18.
Do you think maybe the taxes are Michael
Before
Mara?
everybody speaks from the audience, you're really supposed to come up to the diet up here and state your name and your address, so that we have it on the record and all, so, and so you can be heard.
You guys are sitting, so I should be able to sit.
I'm sorry, I'm just, you're welcome to speak, sir.
Michael Mira, 243 Hawthorne Road.
Okay.
Do you think maybe the taxes are too high here for people to stay?
The taxes are what the taxes are. We do our best job we can with the budgets. I don't know how that affects this ordinance particularly, but
I have a tractor trailer on Hawthorne Road, and I really don't think tractor trailers are allowed to be on Hawthorne Road. So as the taxes go up and the taxes go up and the taxes go up.
I don't know your specific situation. If it's a problem in your neighborhood, to let us know, and we have either the police department look at it or.
Well, you on council, just drive around the neighborhood once in a while, check out the neighborhood. You're getting paid to represent.
Well, we are getting paid to do that, but on the other hand, it's we need to know about it. I mean, you're telling me about it now, so we're not going to be driving around the neighborhood looking for problems. We have to be informed. So you're stating that one of your neighbors is parking a commercial vehicle illegally on the.
Well, I have a commercial vehicle also, but I park my commercial vehicle behind my house, and it's not an eyesore from the street.
So you're stating that someone else's.
Yes, 3 houses away has a tractor trailer parked in the driveway. They moved in a year ago. So my concerns of being a taxpayer for 29 years here does not matter. But the person that just moved in last year that puts a tractor trailer in, and tractor trailers are cool, then that means that we can all buy one.
Ms. Miller, may I address that?
Yes, please.
It's a tractor only, and it is parked in the driveway, and I believe it's not violating our ordinance. But if it was on the roadway, that would be a violation.
Okay. Does that answer anything for you, Mr. Mayor?
As long as everybody else in the neighborhood could get one, yeah.
Well, this is just how it's written, The biggest problem around here, I mean, everybody around here will complain.
We're paying more money and more money and more money and more money and more money. Now, what you going to do outside, like with the kitchen and with the playground, will our taxes go up again?
That's grant money, sir. No.
I just asked.
That's grant money.
I just asked.
No, I'm just
Ma'am, I just asked. Thank you, ma'am.
Absolutely. No, it will not. And anything, and with the kitchen, we did not get grant money for that. That is money that we've been able to set aside. We're talking $5,000, which renovating a kitchen, that's not much. But that's just money that's been put aside. Because it needs to be done, because we can't, the more money the little bit of money we put in there, we're going to be able to charge more to rent. And it's the only way we make money around here is renting out the space. And there's lots of times we can rent it out, and the better the space is. And now having air conditioning in there, which is a momentous thing that happened last month, with the grant money for that was just momentous, that we're going to be able to air condition that gym. We're actually going to have it rented out during the day most of the month of July to the school district, which we will get paid back for.
So the taxpayer get a little break?
Well, can't say that because we don't know what tax costs.
Open discussion? We got to get back to the agenda. Open this up again.
Well, I'm just trying to answer his questions as best I can. I get what you're saying, but we are getting off the subject a bit. But I'd be glad to talk to you when the meeting's over about any more details. But we're doing our best. with, well, what we can do, and hopefully the situation that you just brought up with the thing about the trucks and all, we answered your question. The last thing on law and ordinance that I was just going to mention, and Mr. Ewald can address this, is we discussed setting up a historic commission, which is an ad hoc committee. Mr. Semino had always been interested in this, and he and I have talked in the last couple of weeks. We do have a list of historic buildings here in Morton. And Mr. Ewald, can you address that a bit?
We've looked at it in the past, and I'll prepare something for next week's agenda meeting to go over what we've done in the past. It's been 5 years, so it's not fresh on my mind, but we'll take a look at that, and I'll go over what the options are.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything with law and ordinance? Okay, we'll go on to Parks and Recs. I'm sorry.
From the floor.
Yes, sir.
Parking signs? No.
It's open discussion.
This is agenda.
We can do that. Okay. We'll listen to you in a moment. Parks and Recreations, Mr. App?
Thank you, Madam President. First on my list, I'd like to announce again that on Saturday, February 29th, which is Leap Day, from 11 o'clock till 2 o'clock here at the Borough Hall, we are going to be having the great Leap Day Cake Contest and Sale. So all bakers, calling all bakers, come bake a cake. You can sell the cake, make a profit on the cake. It's only $5 to register for the event, and you get to keep the proceeds of your sale. We will be having local bakers from the different bakeries coming to judge the cakes. The cakes that are going to be judged will be judged on presentation and also on taste. So if you are a baker and you like to bake a cake, or you want your kids to bake a cake, we could have a kids corner also. We're asking if you're entering the contest, but you don't have to enter the contest, you can just sell. But if you enter the contest, bake a small cake for the tasting. And, so that's a little bit about the Great Leap Day Cake Contest and Sale. The next thing I wanted to mention on my list is the 5K planning for a 5K run on June 6th has begun. I've been in contact with Run the Day, who does our timing and our registrations, and we're trying to get that squared away so we can proceed with the rest of our planning for that day. Charles Catania was talking to our engineer recently, and he said it would be to our advantage to get bids for the corrective measures at Jacobs Park, which is on our agenda for Parks and Recreation, because at this time of the year, we might be able to get some lower prices for this type of activity. So what we're looking to do is to regrade and level and seed Jacobs Park so that it'll be able to be used properly for sports. So that's something we can take up next week at our meeting when Charles is here. But he did say to mention that to everyone so we can start thinking about that and maybe get a really good bid from a company looking to do work during the winter months.
When you seed it, you have the ability to water the seed?
I don't know the answer to that.
Sir, let him finish speaking, because this is a whole different
I'm sorry.
I'm sure that will be addressed. And the only other thing I have is to announce our next meeting for Parks and Recreation, which everyone is welcome to attend. Next meeting will be March 2nd, which is a Monday, at 7 o'clock here in this room. And Madam President, I'm sorry, that is all I have for today.
Thank you. On the regrading and that sort of thing, I don't know whether or not that needs to be discussed in your committee. And I only say that because we had been talking about lots of things. We can talk about that, get bids on it, but I think your committee needs to understand some
Yeah,
of that too. That
just-
you might want to bring that up at that meeting in March.
Yeah, just to go there, in the budgeting process, we did come up with two things we wanted to achieve this year. And one of them was the Jacobs Park field, and the other is to extend some more parking there at Jacobs Park on the lower level.
Right.
Those are the two things that we had budgeted into
Yeah.
parking lot.
The grant things that happened this morning with the recreation improvements, that's going to start coming fast and furious. I just want to mention that
Yes.
to you. The
We're
county
looking
wants to
forward
get
to
the
that.
money off the books, and some of the things that Mr. Catania will tell us next week, that can get started really quickly, which would be a wonderful thing, seeing that government works slow. But that's all good. And also I want to mention on the cake, the Great Leap Day Cake Contest.
The Great Leap Day Cake Contest and Sale.
And sale. I make cakes, but they don't decorate well. So I said to Mr. App, but I make some great oatmeal cookies. And he said, well, you can come and sell your cookies. So that's what I'm planning on doing. I'll put my $5 in to donate it to Parks and Recs, but I'm going to make up some cookies to sell.
Absolutely.
Be part of what's going on. So if anybody's a baker and they're not really into cakes, maybe do a great pie or I was gonna say cheesecake, but that's a cake. Brownies or something.
Cheesecake's a cheesecake, that would be.
Yeah, I know, that's a cake.
Mayor, that would qualify, right?
Yeah.
Cheesecake.
Yes.
Yeah, but
clarify.
cookies or something, that would qualify too. It's gonna be great fun.
Just pay that $5 and you're.
And also I want to mention that the mayor is going up to the high school tomorrow to meet with Governor Wolf. Governor Wolf is going to be here to address certain financial things with the school district, which I think maybe Mrs. Guy is going to make a little comment about later. But the mayor's going to be there to represent Morton. So hopefully we'll get a nice picture of Tom, right? For our records. Okay. So you done, Mr. Mayor?
Absolutely, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anything on planning?
No, not this time.
Zoning?
Not this time.
Okay. The zoning meeting that was held a couple of weeks ago for the Republican Club, it was approved to become a church. They did quite a presentation. It was very discussed in detail, and the zoning board unanimously agreed to allow that to be a church, and we'll find out more as time goes on. Okay. Now we're on to old business. Is there any old business of council anyone wants to bring up?
Question, did they ever give a move-in date or when they were going to start?
No,
Not yet.
no, they're still.
What's the?
They're proposing interior renovations. They haven't even submitted building permits to my knowledge, so it's going to be a little while.
Was the sale approved?
Well, yeah, we don't know.
It was contingent
It's still
upon-
pending.
Yeah, but I mean, it was contingent
Yeah,
upon getting the zoning first of all, so that's what they got, so hopefully.
I guess hopefully you'll get notice when they apply for use and occupancy.
That's right.
We may get that before we get anything from the county about that the sale was approved according to what Mrs. Preston tells us. Okay. Any new business before council? Sir, what is your name? Will you please come over here and,
I make you speak.
if you don't mind?
I've spoken since high school.
Well, we're nice here. Do your best.
My name is Ernest Walter. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is that turned off a while? Good.
It's all good. Yes.
And
Where do you live, sir?
I live at a property at 100 Fish Street, Yellowcourt Apartments, and we have cars are parking as you make the turn in the Fish Street from church. They're parking right on the corner. Something new now. And I notice there's a lot of parking issues everywhere. You know, not just here for Springfield as well, but I'm just trying to deal with an accident ready to happen. And the way my wife and I would discuss it was have no parking along that whole entire side of the building where we have already off-street parking.
Sergeant, do you know?
There is a small portion between Church Road and the entrance to Mr. Walter's building, where there's a sidewalk. A car could park there, but I told him he needed to check with council, see if we have to enact an ordinance to put the sign up, or we can just put the sign up.
Okay, is this, when you cross the railroad tracks on Church Road, is that the building on the left?
It's the building on the right.
Well, if you're coming down from Baltimore Pike.
Yeah, coming from Borough Pike down Church Road, you have to go to the railroad track, it's within 1 ring.
Okay.
You have court apartments.
Okay.
We own the building, my way.
Oh, okay. So what do we need to do here? To look into that? Has there been accidents there?
No, but every time you come down here, if it was late at night, you could hit whatever parked. You wouldn't be able to see it.
Is it well lit?
No, they're not, it's just, it's sitting right on the corner of the property. As soon as you make the turn, you almost have to make a wider turn to make the turn. So if there's no sign, everybody can park everywhere they want.
Just so I understand, you're talking about on South Church Road between Yale and Christian?
Right
On the
Church
west
and Christian
side?
Church.
It would be
Not
on
Yale,
Christian
Christian.
Street.
Christian Street.
Right,
Oh, on Christian
Right
Street.
at the corner.
in the front of the property.
I have a picture of it.
Okay. I mean, we're gonna have to just take a look into it. I know where you're.
This is the corner where Church Road comes in, and they're parked right on the edge of the street. So you make the turn, maybe go late at night, you're gonna hit me.
Okay, I mean, we'll take a look at it.
And police said they can't do anything about it because there's no ordinance that says they
Well,
can't do
it could be no ordinance, and then if there's been an accident that causes more activity, on the other hand, it doesn't mean it shouldn't be looked into. Since you're concerned
We're
about
just
it,
trying to
that
prevent
certainly makes
it
sense.
from happening.
Right.
Plus people are just looking for someplace, new place to park, that they can't say anything. Parked in a way because there's nothing to sign saying they can't. Of course, you don't want to have, I'm not gonna say you can't have the whole entire horse signs everywhere.
Right.
Officer Russ, wasn't there a ordinance that talked about no parking 8 feet to the corner?
I'd have to research that on.
I thought I remember,
If it was totally
because we had the same problem on Walnut Street.
The cars, I did see a car parked there one day, and there was about maybe 6 feet. It's kind of a gray area if you write a ticket for obstructing traffic. So a sign needs to be put up there if that's what you want to do. And we need to check and see if an ordinance has to be enacted or not.
What I'd suggest and ask you to do is before you leave, to make sure that Mrs. Preston has your phone number, your address, your email,
No problem.
or whatever.
And
we will look into it. We'll make sure the chief knows about it, and we'll look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, oh, you're welcome. Is there anyone else that likes to address council? Mrs. Guy, you want to come up?
Good evening. My name is Jacqueline Guy. I'm at 635 Country Lane in Morton. I am also the elected school board director to represent Morton in the school district. I've got to kind of go to a gray area about where I'm supposed to do this, so I'm kind of going to do this here because I really want people to hear the goings-on of the school district to get it to my constituents. So the first thing I want to talk about is that Governor Wolf is coming tomorrow. He's going to be meeting with 6 families, as well as Mayor App, Superintendent Barber, Bruce Lord, who's the president of the school board. Excuse me. Governor Wolf had just said that he wants to increase funding for public schools. So this is kind of going to be along that, why we need to increase funding for public schools. So that's what the meeting is about tomorrow.
Will the taxes go down?
Okay, the second thing is I want to bring, we have a preliminary budget for the Springfield School District, and I want to explain a little bit about what's happening with the budgets. I know everybody's like, why do taxes keep going up? Why do taxes keep going up? And one of the reasons that our taxes are going up is because our budget revenue, 72% of our budget comes from local taxes. 15% comes from the state, and 1% comes from the federal government, and then we have a fund balance where we have 11%. The fund balance is for paying for things that the state is not paying for. So we have a lot of unfunded mandates in the school district. I think I talked to you about this before. These are orders that the state puts in, but they don't actually fund them. So the funding comes from the taxpayers. We have no option at that point.
Until they go homeless.
Until, so two of the biggest revenue shortfalls that we have are our basic education and our special education. So, for example, special education, when we started funding for special education, the state had given us money. So this is where we were when we first started for special education. We were here. Now, this was the funding, this was the cost. Now, the cost of special education is up here, but this is the funding that the state gives us, okay? So all of this, we have to pay for. We have no more money coming in from the state. As a matter of fact, this proposed budget shows that we are not expecting any more subsidies from the state that we already get. No more over what we already get for both basic education and for special education. Now, this was written before Governor Wolf declared that he wants more money to come to the public schools. So basic education may go up. That's going to depend. This was written in January before he made that announcement. But as far as special education, like I said, that's a big amount. We also have a lot of other unfunded mandates. We get a bit back from the state in a subsidy for our busing. But as you know, in Pennsylvania, if you bus one, you have to bus everyone. So everyone that lives in Springfield Township, the children that live in Springfield Township, if they don't attend a school district here, we have to bus them within 10 miles from Springfield. They have to go, if they're going to Cardinal O'Hara, if they're going to a Montessori school, anywhere they're going that's within 10 miles of here, we have to bus them. And that's another mandate. Once again, here was the funding, now here's the cost. Once again, we're having to make up the difference between the two. So right now, our proposed increase is 2.6%. We have been able to, through other funding means and things, to reduce that amount. So as last year, then this goes through Act 1. Now, Act 1 is that the state sets the tax. It no longer comes from the school districts themselves. They take a formula, part of it is wage increases statewide, and then another part is funding for retirements nationwide. Okay, and I don't know if you've been listening to a lot of finances lately, but the retirement plans have been poorly managed by the states that run them and by the federal government. So we have a shortfall. So we have to make up the shortfall. And that's another part of our tax increase comes from there. So the proposed preliminary increase is 2.6%. We're going to try to work that down to at least 2.3, 2.25. We also had they just redid the entire Delaware. They just reassessed properties. That will affect next year. This is the 2021 budget. So we are looking at hopefully no more. We tried really hard to get less than that amount. Last year we actually were able to reduce it by 0.62%. So we're trying every time because we understand that there are a lot of people here on fixed incomes. We have a lot of seniors in our township. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ms. Guy, but can I ask a clarification point?
Yes.
On,
Michael, say your name and your address, please.
Yes.
Michael Fiorentino, 32 Providence Road, Morton. Just a question for a school board member,
Yes.
Ms. Guy. When you talk about the proposed increase is 2.6%,
Correct.
and you're shooting for 2.3%, should we take that to mean that the proposed increase is what is allowed by law by the state
Yes.
under Act 1? 2.6 is the maximum tax increase that a school district can put on unless they come up with some justification
Yes,
for going above it.
exactly.
Is that right?
Yes, and
Okay.
to get that, then it goes to public meetings as far as, input on that. So we always try to stay below the Act 1 budget set, and we try hard to reduce that as much as possible.
Thank you.
Yes.
Michael Muir, 243 Hawthorne Road. May I ask what Act 1 is?
Yes, yes, I will. I actually wrote that down because I knew somebody was going to ask me that. So let me get to that. Okay. This act one was passed in 2006. Before 2006, school districts were able to raise taxes as high as they wanted to. What this budget, what Act 1 did was it reined that in. So the state sets the tax budget on schools. And they do this through a combination. They look at the percentage of changes in wages statewide, and then they also look at the changes in the cost of compensation, which is the retirement plans nationwide. And that's how they get their formula. Go ahead.
What happens to someone if they don't pay their school taxes?
I'm not really sure at that point. I think you would
That's
appeal the tax.
that's the whole other thing, that
Yeah.
goes out to the county, and the county puts a lien on people's property, and.
Yeah, I mean, there is a way to appeal your tax.
But they can't take, they can't take your property until you die or sell it.
I have no idea.
It's a lien on your property.
Yeah, that's a-
Jackie, go on,
That's more of a government issue. Okay.
I'm just asking, ma'am.
Yeah, I understand, but no, I don't know that information for you.
Fairly-
That-
It's a
that-
real
that-
estate tax.
Yeah.
The public comment section is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board. If we could have the comments address the board, that would be
Yes,
appreciated.
I can take questions. Is that okay? Should I
Go
not
ahead.
take questions?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Just go ahead.
Okay, so our budget expense chart, right now we'll be spending 22% of our budget on benefits. Those are the retirement plans as well as medical plans for our staff and everyone. We will be using 33% of our budget for wages. That is for the entire school district, for all the staff of the school district. We have 14% of our budget that we use for special education. Once again, we're not being properly funded for these things. So when you ask your representative, why are our taxes so high? And they say, well, the school sets them, that's not right. We only have what we're given to work with. We have other services, professional services, facility services make up the remainder of that amount for the taxes. We also have more kids in the district than ever. Right now, we are projecting, sorry, let me get to that real quick. Yeah, I know I dropped that one. I think we are projecting 4,500 students. I'm sorry, I was there, sorry about this. We have averaged about, oh, here it is. Okay, we are averaging about 250 kids have joined our district since 2017, 16, 17. So we have 4,290 students projected for 2021 school year, and we have 446 teachers and ancillary staff, special ed teachers, associates, assistants. Right now, and we've been doing really good on this, I want to remind you that we are the #1 high school, which if you think about it, the high school is the end product. So we are the #1 high school in Delaware County and the #4 in the state. And that's huge. One of the reasons is because we keep our certified teaching staff and our ratio. So the ratio is how many students per teacher. Right now we have 1 teacher to every 14 students. That's huge. That's huge because in a lot of places you're looking at 1 for 30 students. So that's also big for us. And so we have sent the preliminary budget. We won't know the actual budget that we get until we know what the governor's actual budget will be allowed. Like I said, he's trying to get more money for the school district. Whether or not that happens, we'll have to wait and see. But this is our preliminary budget. So yes, Mr. Lillicrap? Go ahead.
Charles Lillicrap, 114 Locust Road. The new school is smaller because it was projected to be declining enrollment. Is that correct?
We are now building a 3rd floor to the new school.
No.
No.
A 3rd floor?
This is
In other words-
right now, this is not what we're going to discuss.
It looks like Notre
I understand
Dame.
your question,
It
and I
looks like the
agree.
University of Notre Dame.
All right, hold on.
No. We're going to,
Can I-
Jackie, finish up what you're
No
going
question.
Can the taxpayer talk?
Are you saying you don't want?
Let her
Taxpayer
finish.
talk?
Let her finish.
Originally, the school was designed for a lower amount of students, you are correct. But given that our growth has continued to rise, the school is actually going to be able to accommodate growth as well.
Right, one moment, please. Are you saying that you're projecting now that the enrollment decline will not be what you anticipated or projected?
I believe that's so. I'm not exactly 100%
That's what
sure.
I'm
I can
trying
get
to
you that
find out.
information.
So therefore, it'll be a higher cost.
Well, no, the cost is the cost. We've
So therefore, the
already,
projected was like,
no, we've already,
The projection was wrong, and I understand exactly what you're saying.
oh, do you?
I agree with you. The projection was wrong. It made no sense when they did the projection, and now they're adding a third floor to the building.
but we have built that into what we have already, the monies for the school.
What
That is part of it.
education, the state budget, I think last I saw was approaching 48% of the total budget.
For the state,
Yeah.
I don't know, they give us 14%.
Okay.
That's what I know. We get 14% of the money from the state.
Michael Mayer, 243 Hawthorne Road. So, in a situation where people are out of work, people have lived in this community for 30 years and worked their ass off 7 days a week for 100 hours a week. Your influx of children are more important. Nothing against children. But older people are supposed to lose their houses.
Sir,
because-
this isn't the time to bring that
I
up.
will say this. I will say this.
Jackie, don't bring it up. Continue with what you're doing.
All right, so that's all I had to say about the budget. I would urge the people in the borough to come to the meetings. This is where everything happens, at the meetings. And
This, I want to make it very clear, this is school district business.
this is school district business, but this is the only place that I can kind of get out the messages that I need to get out. I don't know if you've had your former school directors
Well, you know that we did
report
not have our
back.
former school director come and address
So
us.
I
But as you
appreciate you being
said,
here.
what you need to do is encourage
Yes, you need
residents
to
to go
come
up
to
to
the
the school
district.
district to make your concerns known to the school district.
But I believe in transparency, and, I'm sorry? Okay, so yes, I'm sorry. So the school board meetings are the fourth Thursday of the month, the public meeting. If you have questions that you would like to ask me that I could bring up, I believe you have my school district email address. Is that right, Marty? Do you have that, or should I just give it out again?
I have it.
Okay. You can contact the borough. And the
If
district
it's
and
not
the
on the
meeting,
website, it will be on
the
the website.
meetings are at Springfield High School on Leamy Avenue. If you're looking at the school, the building, the administration building is on the right. So it's right there. But yeah, I was elected to bring transparency and bring information back. And that's for every resident, regardless of whether or not you voted for me, any of that. That doesn't matter now. What matters now is the borough. So that's all I really wanted to say. Yes?
Sorry, can you repeat the time for the meeting?
Yes, the meetings are at 7 o'clock, the fourth Thursday of the month, and they are at the district offices, which are next to the high school on Leamy Avenue.
Thank you, Mrs. Kine. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Can I just add one little bit of information? And that is that the school district meetings are on the school cable channel in
Yes.
both municipalities, and also the school meetings are kept on, you can go to the school district website, and they keep the meetings there too, if you want to see them.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
You're going to come up, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Guy.
Thank you.
Good evening, Michael Lee, 123 West Sylvan Avenue, Morton, Pennsylvania. This has kind of happened to me before. Am I at a borough council meeting, or did I walk into a Fox News show? You know, with all the constant interruptions, I feel like I've been at a Fox News show.
You're showing your bias there, Mr.
We're trying to control the meeting and not have people speak out of turn.
I do agree with that.
People have a right to their opinion.
I have
And
no-
I wanted Mrs. Guy to have the opportunity, since we had not had this in the last several years from the school district rep to come and represent us, that give her the opportunity to speak tonight.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Lee.
Thank you. I'm going to try to make this real quick. A few weeks ago, I was trying to cross the tracks at Church Road, near where Mr. Walters lives. I don't know if he and his wife or anybody there were aware of it, but the crossing gates were down, but there was no activity. I don't know whether the gates were broken or if there was a problem with the train or both, but there were a number of cars that were crossing the gates, which number one is against the law, and all that is against common sense. Please, use the brains that God gave you, and if you see the gates down, do not cross it, do not cross the tracks. You might be, you're putting your life at risk, and anyone else who might be in the car with you. Second of all, second in regards to, the people who are wondering about the budget, later on this year, there will be budget committee meetings, and that will be the time they can go, and if anybody has a problem with the spending, whether they want to cut or increase, that's the time to do it. And in years past, the only ones who've really, from the public, who've been at these meetings, besides myself, has been a former councilman, Charles Lillicrap. He and I, more often than not, are the ones here at the budget committee meetings.
That's correct.
So that's the place to go to raise your concerns. Second of all, third of all, thank you. Third of all, I've known people in my younger days who refused to pay their federal income taxes, and I can assure you from their experience, besides the loss of their freedom, they also paid a financial price. They ended up paying the taxes anyhow, including penalties and interest. And if they didn't have the cash to do it, I can assure you everything they owned was seized and auctioned off to take care of the debt. Second of all, I was acquainted with someone who's now deceased, got behind in her taxes, not just for Morton Borough, the county and the school district, and if she hadn't come to a monthly agreement with the county, to make a cut short, her house was just one step away from being sold at auction to pay the debt. So it's not a joke. They are dead serious about getting the taxes. Now, the one other thing I wanted to bring up tonight is this: how goes the search for a tax collector?
We have a tax collector. She was sworn in last week. Kristen Acarola. She's from Hawthorne Road.
Okay.
She is more than qualified. She has a paralegal certificate. She lives here in the borough. She has a wonderful husband, 2 children. She does work full-time, but she also works for a CPA firm. And when I talked to her initially, first vetted her, she was like, oh, okay, because she wasn't overwhelmed by the work, and she's done everything she has to do. She's taken the classes, she's and everything's been done, correct? She's contacted the school district, which is also part of her job. She's going to be terrific.
Okay, and I've had a conversation with Mrs. Acquarola a time or two in the past, so I do agree with your assessment of her. And one other thing too, also too in regards to the school board meetings, more often than not, I'm the only one there from either Morton or Springfield. I'm absolutely the only one. Now, the only time it's really filled is maybe if somebody's getting an award from the students and their families are there, but when it's done, they all just walk away and do whatever. I realize, of course, that for the kids, it's a school night, maybe they still have some homework to do, but you would think at least one parent would stay behind.
Well, nonetheless, you are appreciated by us, and I think the school board meetings where you're appreciated, as we appreciate everyone who's here tonight. This is a better showing than what's at the school district.
Yes.
And everyone's welcome, and everyone is welcome to come, whether they're children or not. We appreciate them being here, and just as much as we appreciate them volunteering for anything to do around here. So thank you, Mr. Lee.
And thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you all. Thank you for listening. Good night, and may God bless all of you.
Thank you. Yes. Go ahead, Mike.
Can I just, Mr. Paul, how are we with the schedule with that? Are we going to meet the schedule as far as getting the ballot?
Their taxes are in the mail.
The taxes are in the mail.
So technically, the taxes went out late, but they're in the mail, so they're only in.
They're dated February 1st.
Yeah, they're dated February 1st, but they're technically late, but this is only the 5th, so yeah, look forward to that in the mail here shortly, folks. Yes, Mr. Florentino.
Good evening, Michael Fiorentino, 32 Providence Road. Good evening, Madam President and Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Just a couple of comments. I think this may be the first time I'm addressing council since the changes on Providence Road were completed. And I just want to commend council for staying on top of that, and to the contractors that were hired by the council. I think they did an excellent job. Also commend Mr. Catania for overseeing that work. And I also want to say that since that work has been done, I want to report, being an eyewitness, right in the midst of it there on Providence Road, just above the curb, that it has done wonders. It has really been a very positive change to our neighborhood there, I think to safety overall for the borough of Morton as a result of the selections that were made in terms of the type of speed hump and the signage and so forth. I mean, it really has been a remarkable reduction in speed. We never hear people ripping up onto curbs anymore. As far as I know, there haven't been any accidents either. And for those folks who thought that there might have been an issue with noise, I can tell you that doesn't seem to be the case either. Very rarely do I hear somebody hit one of those speed humps with enough speed to make any kind of appreciable sound. So all good to report from the production so far. I guess to follow up on that, I know that PICO or their contractors were working on gas mains in Providence Road down at the corner with Morton Avenue and maybe traveling on down towards Seacane for some distance. And I'm wondering if anybody on council knows if that project is going to continue up the hill up Providence Road or not, and if so, when is that scheduled to begin?
Do we know anything about gas work? Okay. The only thing we do know is that there's going to be water between Old Providence Road and Baltimore Pike. That on the north side is going to be torn up.
Coles.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're just putting it, they're doing Baltimore Pike, but I guess they're doing the little offshoots too, so.
All right, so in the area where we live, in the area where the speed bumps, you're not anticipating.
It won't affect the speed bumps, no, but it will affect the road.
I understand. Okay.
And I do want to mention to you that on Christmas Day, 2:30 in the afternoon, I came down Morton Avenue and made a left turn on the Providence Road, and everybody was at four-way stops. And as we turned to go left up toward Baltimore Pike, someone came zooming in a SUV down the wrong side of the road, almost hit us head on. My daughter's
at the curve on Providence Road?
No, at the stop, right at the intersection.
Oh, okay.
Came past people, and somehow, as we were making the left, he cut in front of a car that was stopping, went past us. Everybody laid on their horns. Like I said, 2:30 on Christmas afternoon. Very
you can't
bizarre
account for
thing.
crazy. You can't account for crazy.
Yeah, well, that's just it. You know, it was a bad time to be drunk or something, and it was dry and
Too much
clear and
eggnog.
all. It was really bizarre, and my son-in-law was driving, and when we finally got to the stoplight at Baltimore Pike, he said, "Are you done?" Because I was in the back seat, complaining, "We spent this money, and this happened, and so on and so forth. Here's this crazy person, and it's in the afternoon, and of course the kids have a brand new car, so I was worried. You know, we got hit head on. It was a very bizarre thing. So I'm pleased to hear that nothing's happened on the road, but here I was. Innocently on this particular day, having this strange, a very strange incident happen. But fortunately, nobody,
was hurt, and it's a
I
perfect
didn't get the
segue.
license.
Perfect segue to my second question or issue, which Christmas trees. I had the impression that the arrangements we had with our recycling hauler was that we were going to get a Christmas tree pickup this year. I know we've talked about it for a number of years, and I thought that was in the pipeline. Never talked about it.
They don't do it. I mean, the recycler doesn't do it.
Right.
I mean, they won't come around. I mean, they don't do that as a side business or whatever else, so it's.
I know that it was discussed at some point, maybe it never made it into any contract.
But I mean, just to let you know, that's what it is. The recycler does not do that kind of business.
He doesn't.
You've got to go dump it over in Springfield.
Well, I mean, I guess that. I guess that.
They have certain places that you can take them to. You yourself will have to take it.
I'm not aware of it, and we'd love to hear about that. Maybe that's something we can advertise on our Morton website.
Maybe it's
But-
something for the sanitation recycling committee to look at.
I was just going to say, given that the bid process is going to be coming up, when are we going to be getting that?
Well, I have to give Mr. Poole to get the information, but we need to do it very soon. So I plan on by this week, sending you all on the committee your emails to confirm our meeting date.
Oh, great. Well, I look forward to participating.
All right.
But I guess I think, just as a general matter, that would be maybe one factor to consider in whatever kind of RFP we set up, whether or not a hauler would be willing to consider that kind of thing in the future. Nobody does it. Nobody does it.
I mean, that's what, they don't, I don't know of anybody who, I mean, actually, some communities do it, like Springfield does it on their own, they will do that. The township does it on their own, they do that. But I don't know of anybody who has a contract.
I see it. All right. Then, can I pay this thing?
It was about what you were just talking about.
You got to do the formal thing.
Okay, formal thing. Jacqueline Guy, 635 Country Lane. Don't we have someone that picks up, like, we have a day where they tell you to put your yard waste?
That's the yard waste pickup.
Could that be used as well for the Christmas tree pickup? Could that be expanded for that?
That's what you're saying.
Oh,
There's no reason why you can't save your Christmas tree till spring if you want. That's what you have to do.
I have an artificial tree, I don't know.
Yeah, me too.
I'm sorry, spring is when, Mr. McGrath, spring is when the next yard waste pickup occurs, right?
Yeah.
So if it's bundled and tied, it's just branches.
That's when you have to do it. You literally have to cut the tree.
Remember that? Cut it up.
Okay? I mean, I
That means to go around and collect them and use them as kindling.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Will the trash pickup be in occurrence on President's Day?
Yes.
Okay, just wondering.
Yes, trash will be picked up on President's Day.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
This thing working?
Yes.
You hear me?
Yes.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
You can hear me now. I owe Mr. Poole an apology. Because yesterday, not yesterday, the day before, I said you're the one who said it. It was not to the chief, it was to the president of the fire company.
Correct.
That's who it was to. I owe you an apology for that. I was misinformed. See this headline in the Daily Times? Thanks. Thanks for nothing. That's what it is, nothing. Thanks for nothing, that's what it is.
Yeah, you're referring to,
It says Borough approves tax breaks for volunteers, first responders. There's only 2 of us in the borough.
we were the first municipality in Delaware County to approve a suggestion or whatever from the state to give a tax rebate to volunteer fire people.
But only 2 people in the borough. There's not another person that's volunteered here. I've been here all my life. I've been in the fire company since I've been 15 years old. There's other people that were here before me, but they're dead. And it's just not fair. I put 37 years in as president of the fire company. I drove every truck that they had from a 1950 1950 Maxim all the way up to the new truck. I don't drive it anymore because I got Parkinson's. And they say you can't apply for this because you're not active. I'm still active. I walk up and down the street, watch me. I come to these meetings. I split my own wood. I asked you people if I could get the wood from the woods next door. So this thing, it's just a slap in the face to us. I'm not speaking for the fire company, I'm speaking for the people who were firemen there. None of yous got up in the middle of the night and fires and all the
Did anything.
the ice and all that falling down, damn near breaking your neck. We're trying to save somebody out of a house. It's just not fair. I think you should do something else about this ordinance. You should just abolish it, because it's not worth anything. The most you would get out is $100 or maybe $200. And that lady whose husband just died, she's not going to get nothing. Not a thing. Not a thing.
Lived across the street from me.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm just asking you people to do something.
What you spoke of has nothing to do with the idea of what you're bringing up initially, which was, if anybody wants to know, it's a volunteer fire company, correct?
That's right.
Right. And understand, there's criteria that were set up by the state that this program is run under. And you're opposed to those because you're not eligible. We understand that. But there's nothing that we can do because that's the way that it was presented to us. I mean, the solicitor will agree with that, but there's, you know.
Circumstances alter cases.
So.
You know that, solicitor.
What is that?
Circumstances alter cases.
For what?
For anything.
But I mean, and just to let you know, I mean, the discussion we had yesterday, you were complaining that the fire company had not presented us with an eligibility list, which is still the case.
Yes, they didn't promote, but they were tied up to, and I told you that.
No, the list was to be in by December 1st, and they were told about it at a public meeting in October, and at a budget meeting in November.
Did you guys?
Both occasions, they said that the list
was done.
They said that the list would be presented to us. In fact, they said that directly to the solicitor at the one meeting. We will get that list to you.
Did you guys bring in all the
received it.
Rutledge guys?
You
Get rid
can't.
of all the Morton guys?
Stop. You're speaking out of turn. And the idea is that, right, we still don't even have a regular eligibility list. That's the requirement that the fire company has to meet. The fire chief has to present us every year by December 1st with an eligibility list. And we still do not have one.
This was adopted in 2015?
2016.
2016. The first year, the fire department gave us a list, and the understanding is it has to be in by December 1st, and this is only for Morton, because we only handle the taxes for Morton. The Rutledge volunteers will be from Rutledge. And so they give us this list, and then those people have to come in and fill out a form by the 1st of April showing they had paid their taxes, and then they would get this refund, this reimbursement, this money. And no one applied the first year. The second year, the fire department didn't give us a list. This past year, they didn't give us a list. The firefighter that passed away, his accident was after December 1st, by the way, just to mention it. And so he hadn't applied for it before his death. But those, it's up to the fire department to provide the information to the borough, and then we would take care of it.
But it says in this ordinance, I'm looking for it. I see it, I'm trying to find it. You have to give it to the borough treasurer, your tax bill. Then the borough decides whether or not you're eligible.
No. An eligibility list has to be, in that same ordinance, you'll see earlier on, there has to be an eligibility list presented by the fire chief based on the eligibility requirements. He certifies those firefighters, that's presented to us. That is the base that we work off of. If a firefighter from that list comes forward and wants to apply for a credit, they then go through the process of getting that credit.
And this ordinance is derived specifically from the Act.
Correct.
Which only permits up to 20% refund or rebate, and it only permits the rebates to be given to active firefighters. It's designed to encourage people to become or to continue to be active firefighters, and it was developed with the consultation of the person who was the chief at the time. So I understand and we appreciate the time that you volunteered to the fire department, but we are constrained by what the act permits.
Yeah, there's nobody around anymore. People don't volunteer for that. Because there's so much training you have to go through anymore. And it says here, total amount of time expended by volunteer and others, support services including but not limited to fundraising, running facility or equipment maintenances. So it does, I am qualified for that.
But I'm saying, that's what, there are criteria. But the fire chief has to go through the list and based on that criteria has to present an eligibility list.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to me.
Yeah, thank you for your service.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Yes, one quick question. Michael Lee, 123 West Sylvan Avenue, Morton, Pennsylvania. Unless I've lost my hearing, could you please identify yourself a bit, Mr. Bixby? I don't think you gave your name and address before you spoke.
He did, sir.
He did? Okay.
I'm Bixby, 511 North Morton Avenue, Morton, PA, live in the oldest house in the borough.
Absolutely.
My apologies. Thank you.
Anyone else have business for council? Yes.
One thing, I didn't get to get it in when we had the public safety segment. We had 3 resignations from the police department, one officer being a long-term part-time officer of 21 years service, and we had 2 other part-time officers who left for full-time jobs.
The older officer we expected to, that he was leaving.
That was a different one, he went to Swarthmore.
Oh, okay.
Another one long-term, 21 years of service, he just gave us his resignation.
Can you give us the names? Can you give the names?
Sure, Michael Flanagan, he gave 21 years service. He's going to be done on March 31st of this year, which is next month, but he already gave us a letter. And like I said, 21 years of service is pretty good.
Well,
Not continuing in police work.
He is not? Okay, I thought there was someone who was doing something that possibly going into 911 center or something.
He does work there now, and he had received a promotion, and his responsibilities have increased, so it's limited his availability to work.
Okay, so that's who I was thinking of.
Yes.
Okay, so he's involved, not involved, kind of at the same time. He's not on the street.
Correct.
Excuse me, Sergeant, can you give us an update on our 3 new part-timers that we're looking to bring on board?
2 of them will be sworn in next week. I gave the information to Marty Preston to put on the agenda, and it's going to be a little bit longer. He just doesn't have any experience, so we have to go through a more rigid processing.
Thank you.
Those 2 who were quitting, how long were they on?
One was a year, both of them a year.
They did the 1-year contract.
Yes.
Did they get hired somewhere else?
Yes, one went to Chester Police and the other one went to Yates.
This is what happens with the part-timers. They get trained by our wonderful police department, get trained well, and these other places want them.
With the hiring of the new 3 part-timers, are you all fully staffed?
We're still going to be a little bit under, but we'll be able to manage.
And that's why the full.
Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be hiring a full-timer here in the next few months. Okay, anybody else have anything they want to bring up?
Can I ask, how's the sound?
There's only 2 words.
Good.
All right, everybody can hear us? Good. Thanks.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.